Welcome, and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode until the question-and-answer session of today's conference call. At that time, you may press star 1 if you'd like to ask a question. Today's conference call is being recorded, and if you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I'd now like to turn the call over to Cora Dixon, Department of Commerce. Thank you, ma'am. You may begin.
Thank you very much, Mandy, and thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's webinar. And in this webinar, you will find out why there's demand for renewable energy technology in the growing Brazilian market. We'll help you identify market entry strategies and challenges. You can learn how the International Trade Administration can help you smoothly navigate your market entry. And we'll tell you what you need to know about the Export Green Brazil activities, such as the upcoming trade mission in April 2012. We'd like to give you the webinar outline. We'll start with an overview from Carolina Lembeau of CSB. We're going to have a speaker join us from the Northeast to talk about opportunities there. Kathleen McInerney from the Brazil-U.S. Business Council will talk about the trade mission, and we'll have Regina Cunha from our consulate in Rio de Janeiro talk about the commercial service and how they will work together with Export Green on the trade mission. I have a few quick notes before we begin. Our most common question for every webinar I've ever done is, will the presentations be available afterwards? So I would like to say yes, they will be available on the Export Green website. And in fact, if you're registered for the webinar, we will make sure that you'll be notified when these are posted online. There will also be a web replay of the webinar available for 30 days, so we'll let you know the link for that. You may notice that this is the third in the series of webinars for Export Green. You can find the materials for the other two webinars and other webinars related to renewable energy and energy efficiency on the website export.gov/REEE. We have a section on market research. If you click on the More Market Research page, that will take you to the webinars page. And you will find links to the Export Green webinars and the materials from other webinars and seminars. So we hope you will check out that resource, which is a U.S. government-sponsored website. Regarding questions and answers, we do have a system of typing questions and answers in a message box. I believe it's at the top of your screen. Unfortunately, we will not have time during the presentations to ask questions, so if you have a question, I would advise that you type it in so that when we get to the question and answer period at the end of the webinar, we can answer your questions and address your comments. There will also be an option to ask questions via the phone, and I will explain that when we get to the question and answer period. Okay. And our first speaker today is Carolina Lembeau, and she's going to start us off with an overview of the energy sector in Brazil. And then give me a moment while I bring up her presentation. And you may begin, Carolina.
Well, good afternoon, Cora, and thank you for the kind introduction. And thank you to the International Trade Administration of the Department of Commerce and the U.S. Chamber for the opportunity to speak here today. The United States and Brazil share a strong friendship, as we all know, one based on common values and common interests. As the two largest economies and the two largest democracies in the Western Hemisphere, the United States and Brazil have much in common. In the energy arena, we have already begun to strengthen the economic, commercial, and scientific cooperation between our two countries. This is helping to grow our economies, to strengthen our energy security, and to address the challenge of climate change. I'm here today to present in general, and in the renewable energy sector specifically. So I would ask you to pass the next slide, please. First, I would like to introduce the Federation of Industries of the State of São Paulo, also known as Fiesp, and explain why we are important within the energy sector. Before doing so, let us take a look at some general figures for the state of São Paulo. Next slide, please. The state of São Paulo, though just a mere 3% of the entire Brazilian territory, is larger than the United Kingdom, and about 6 times the size of Switzerland. Around 22% of the Brazilian population live here, and this makes São Paulo the most populous state in the country. The state is also responsible for 35% of the national GDP, and therefore Fiesp represents over 42% of the Brazilian industrial GDP. São Paulo is also responsible for around 40% of the imports within Mercosul and around 50% of the exports too. As we know, Mercosul is also not only Brazil, but Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, and recently also joined us Venezuela. Fiesp is the voice. Next slide, please. So, Fiesp is the voice of 133 corporate unions, which represent approximately 150,000 industries of all sizes and from different productive segments. Fiesp works to expand the borders of the international trade, opening market niches and business opportunities for the Brazilian industry. It maintains close relationship with the diplomatic representatives and official visitors, contributing directly to increase the bilateral trade. Next slide. Within Fiesp, I am responsible for the Infrastructure Department International area. This includes energy, transport, logistics, and telecommunications. Within our current projects, I should mention a study on energy and logistics integrations in Latin America. Also, workshops on investment opportunities in the African energy market. An important study for the renewable sector, where we are going to focus on advancing Brazilian energy development towards sustainable development. And also, we represent our department within the Fiesp Climate Change and Mitigation Working Group. Next slide. Explaining the opportunities available to partner with Brazil in the energy market would be incomplete without overviewing the Brazilian energy sector first. So next slide. We can see in the next slide a little bit about the energy generation institutional framework. First, in terms of energy planning, the Ministry of Mines and Energy is responsible for implementing policies for planning in the energy sector and coordinating national energy. They developed the 10-year plan, which provides a solid basis to support economic growth and productive expansion in investment. Also, it's important to mention the PAC, the Growth Acceleration Program. It's a set of measures that stimulate investment in infrastructure, credit, and exemption of taxes to increase the GDP and job creation that started in 2007. And also we should mention that for guaranteeing energy supply, auctions are used in Brazil, and I'm going to explain the system later on. But it's a mechanism for the purchase and sale of a very wide range of products in the electricity sector, including to increase renewable energy sources within the energy mix, the Brazilian energy mix. And also we should mention the federal social programs that are also important within the sector to increase electricity access, the universal electricity access, including the Light for Everyone program, which aims to increase these access rates, in particular in the rural Brazil area. Next slide. The Brazilian energy mix is characterized with a high percentage from renewable sources. The Brazilian energy mix has 55 from fossil sources and 45 from renewables, over 3 times the world average. So Brazil stands out among most countries in the world, not only for its high use of hydropower, as we can look and see in the graphic, but also its use of advanced biofuels. Next slide. Under the development plan, and this is important because, as I mentioned, we have this 10-year development plan, there is a strong focus to continue building facilities using hydropower, but the largest expansion plans are held with other renewable energy sources, such as wind and thermal power using biomass. With new facilities being built countrywide, there are also large plans to expand the transmission and distribution network. Next slide. Next slide. I'm gonna keep, this one. Let's focus a little bit on this, what they call alternative energy expansion. That is, the growth plan estimates almost 15 gigawatts of additional power generation from wind, small hydropowers, and thermal power using biomass sources. This is a federal mandate to increase power generation from renewable sources. These renewables that does not include large hydropower sources, from 6%, that is our current level, to 16% by 2020. So next slide. Due to the importance in the energy mix in Brazil, the biofuel sector is treated separate here, so I'm going to focus a little bit on ethanol as well. Next slide. As some people already know, the industry started to pick up speed in the 1970s, when the federal government started the pro-ethanol program to jumpstart large-scale production in the hopes to decrease oil imports due to the oil prices at that time. But the program was positive, but the industry only skyrocketed with the introduction of the flex fuel car technology that allows car owners to choose either ethanol for their cars or regular gasoline based on fuel prices. Today, 90% of light vehicles in Brazil use this kind of technology. And an important remark to be made is the fact that sugarcane is grown more than 1,500 miles from the Amazon forest. And also, we should remark that the state of São Paulo is responsible for 60% of the biofuel production in Brazil. Next slide, please. Talking about a little bit about U.S., as you probably know better than me, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency confirmed that the ethanol made from sugarcane, the Brazilian ethanol, is a low-carbon renewable fuel which can contribute greatly to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Regulations for the implementation of the renewable fuel standard, the EPA designed sugarcane ethanol as an advanced biofuel that lowers GHG emissions by around 60%. Also, it's important to mention that this new regulation established a minimum biofuel consumption in the U.S. of more than 12 billion gallons in 2010, rising to 36 billion gallons in 2022, of which 21 billion gallons per year would have to be from advanced biofuels. So next slide, please. With a strong market outlook, how we can increase partnerships and participation into the Brazilian energy market. So here is the core part of my presentation. Next slide. Where I'm going to try to show a few options. The energy auctions that I already mentioned is a scheme that have helped create competition for the market, where investors compete to enter the market through long-term contracts. These have been the basis for the increase in new power capacity in Brazil. So some auctions are technology-specific, named reserve energy auctions, and are organized in order to increase the reserve margin or to foster the development of particular sources of energy. Such is the case of renewables. And here, when I talk about renewables, I'm talking about these alternative renewables, not mentioning large hydropowers. So from 2005 to 2010, around 57,000 megawatts of new capacity were contracted for delivery, starting as early as 2008 and as late as 2015, with contracts ranging from 15 to 30 years. Next slide. And here you all can see an example what happened in August 2011. There was a technology-specific or reserve energy auction to promote renewable power generation, this alternative renewable power generation. Over 12,000 megawatts of installed new capacity from 41 projects were secured, of which 34 are wind farms and 7 from thermal plants using biomass. The cheapest power plant in the bid was the biomass plant using sugarcane, who sold their future production at 9.5 per megawatt hour maximum. And it's important to know that the bid price set by the government was 146 per megawatt hour. So you see how it's already a competitive system for entering the Brazilian market. Next slide. Now we should talk a little bit about investment. There are several finance mechanisms in Brazil that focus on energy projects, especially from renewable sources. One such bank that provides financial mechanisms is the BNDES, or the National Bank of Economic and Social Development. The BNDES is the lending bank ranked second worldwide in terms of financing of renewable projects in 2010, where the European Investment Bank was ranked first. Next slide. Though there are several finance programs within the bank, the BNDES, there are two that are mainly related to investments in the renewable energy sector. So I would like first to highlight Funtech. It aims to support projects that stimulate technological development and innovation within the country. There is a focus on increasing energy efficiency, decreasing polluting emissions, and developing new products such as bioenergy and alternative energy. Next slide. The other BNDES finance program is called FINEM, which focuses on larger investments over 10 million, though smaller credit lines are also possible if the investments show innovation within the field. This credit line supports the infrastructure sector in 5 main segments: power, alternative energy, oil and gas, logistics, and telecommunications. Next slide. Also, it is important to mention that the BNDES lending schemes have played an important role in the growth in the biofuel sector in Brazil. Since 2004, the bank has lent over 25 billion to the sector. So next slide. Another important finance scheme in the field of renewable energy in Brazil is the Nossa Caixa de Desenvolvimento. It's a government development agency for the state of São Paulo. It is started in 2009 and has a green economy credit line that focuses on projects that reduce GHG emissions. There is also a specific scheme for energy called FIP Energy that focuses on energy efficiency projects or those that use renewable energy sources. And next slide. Finally, the Brazilian energy sector works closely within their associations and should be a great start when wanting to enter the market. I have listed here some of the major energy market association players, notably Única, the sugar, ethanol, and energy producers, Abeólica, the wind energy company association, and Cogen, the industrial cogeneration association. Each have their own websites for further information.
Lynn, you can't tell 888.
The last slide. With Brazil, a major player in the energy sector on the international stage, there are numerous events that go on throughout the year. I have listed here a few major energy events this coming year, notably our Fiestas annual International Energy Conference, which happens every year in August, and also the important UN conference in June 2012 called Rio Plus 20. So that is all, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much, Carolina. She's calling in from Sao Paulo. We have quite a group of speakers today, actually, and I just wanted to remind everyone that we will be circulating an email to all the registrants to let you know that the presentations have been posted online, and there is a web replay of the webinar available for 30 days. Okay, unless I am mistaken, our next speaker is Kathleen. Kathleen, are you on the line?
I am on the line.
Yeah, I don't see Dorval yet, so...
Dorval's having some issues logging in, but he will be accessing it shortly, so I'll go ahead with my presentation.
Okay, we'll jump ahead to Kathleen's presentation. Kathleen is with the Brazil-U.S. Business Council, and she is in charge of the Export Green Initiative, a partnership between the Department of Commerce and the Brazil-U.S. Business Council through the National Chamber Foundation. And as you can see, she has extensive experience in the Western Hemisphere. And I'm going to bring up her presentation, which is going to tell you all about the upcoming April trade mission. Well, I shouldn't say all, because at this point there's just sort of a few details are decided, but she'll explain all the activities that Export Green is involved in and how you can sign up and participate. Take it away, Kathleen.
Great, thank you, Cora. Export Green is a joint initiative, as it says here, of the Department of Commerce and the Brazil Council, along with some organizations within the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, including the National Chamber Foundation and Trade Routes. The idea behind the Export Green Initiative is to increase U.S. exports of green products and services to Brazil, and also to create a pathway for Brazilian and U.S. companies in the green technology sector to work together more efficiently and to create better forms of international trade between the two countries. Next slide, please. Trade Routes and the Brazil-U.S. Business Council partner with a number of different organizations, both in the U.S. and in Brazil, in order to make this program possible. In front of you on the slide, you'll see a list of the different chambers that we work with in the U.S., including chambers in Alabama, Texas, California. Basically, we work with chambers across the United States, as well as the local Department of Commerce offices, which are known as USIACs. And in Brazil, we work with our main partner, which is the National Confederation of Industries for Brazil, which is based in Brasilia. And then we work also with the American Chamber of Commerce for Brazil, the headquarters of which are in Sao Paulo, and the organization that Carolina is representing today, which is the Federation of Industries for the state of Sao Paulo. And they're partner organizations across Brazil, which are also the local federations of industry for each state. Next slide, please. The Export Green program has a number of highlights which with companies from across the United States can participate and find out more about how to do business in Brazil. Notably, we have 6 business forums across the United States. We've done business forums in Colorado, Idaho, and Florida. And we'll be doing a program in Atlanta, Georgia, on November 16th. So if any of you are in the Georgia area and would like to join us, we highly encourage you to do so. We'll have representatives at that conference from the National Confederation of Industry, also from FIESP, and from the organization within Rio de Janeiro, which is in charge of putting to the Olympics for the state. So we encourage you to join for that. We also are doing 6 webinars. This is the 3rd in our series. We will have 3 more webinars which will focus on different sectors of green technology trade with Brazil. And if you haven't done so already, we highly encourage you to sign up for our website and our newsletters, which you can do by visiting the Brazil Council website, and the link will be shown in a moment. And we send out monthly newsletters featuring not only resources within Brazil for doing international trade, but also resources that you can access on the local and federal level within the United States that will help your company be successful in the Brazilian market. Next slide, please. We do have 2 trade missions to Brazil as a part of the Export Green project. The first trade mission went in August and was based on green building. And our next trade mission will be in April 22nd through the 27th. And I'll get into that in just a moment. And the reason why we encourage companies to visit Brazil is because in order to really do successful trade within the Brazilian market, it's really important to meet your partners in person, on the ground, develop a personal connection, and you'll find that you'll have a much more successful opportunity for doing business in Brazil. We're also doing 2 Brazilian buying missions to the U.S. We've done our first, which was to the Renewable Energy Show in Washington, D.C. in September. And our next focus will be on PowerGen, which is in Las Vegas, December 13th through the 15th, where we'll be bringing a couple of different groups from Brazil. We're bringing a group of Brazilian energy companies in cooperation with the consulate in Brazil and also the International Buyers Program of Department of Commerce. And we'll also be bringing some procurement officials who are experts in the area of how to do procurement contracts, how to secure procurement contracts in Brazil. So we'll be having a number of different opportunities for companies that are at the PowerGen conference to interact with potential customers and also find out how they can win big government contracts. So if you will be interested in participating in that, please do let us know. Next slide, please. All right, so this has a number of different pieces. So next point, please. Actually, Corey, if you can just load up all the points, that would be great. Thank you. So why is Brazil so hot in 2011? As all of us have known, there is a torrid economic growth of 7.5%. It's dropped a little bit, but we do expect the Brazilian country to still grow at rates that much faster than the United States, and of course, given Europe's chaotic situation, much faster than any country in Europe. It will be host to both the 2014 World Cup and the 2016 Olympics. So on forecasting of economic growth, we do have an expectation of 4 to 5% for the foreseeable future. And proof of Brazil's economic outlook is that they have the highest pay in the world for senior executives, which is in Sao Paulo. The World Cup alone is expected to bring in $47 billion in investment. And if you look at the amount of investment that's expected, it totally dwarfs the amount of the first economic stimulus, which was approved in the U.S. in 2008. So infrastructure investment in Brazil will include PAC 1, PAC 2, and in many other areas. So this investment will equal U.S. $1.3 trillion in infrastructure investments by 2022. So there's a lot of opportunity for U.S. companies to get involved, take advantage of opportunities in Brazil in not only the infrastructure areas, but in tourism, building, IT, healthcare, a number of different sectors. Next slide, please. So why join our trade mission? Our second trade mission, which is focused on energy and the environment, will take place April 22nd through the 27th, 2012. Our group will start in Sao Paulo, and then we'll have an optional extension to Recife. Depending on the company that applies, we'll be able to recommend to you the best option for you for success in Brazil. In Sao Paulo, we'll have a Gold Key service, which will be one complete day of one-on-one matchmaking arranged by the Department of Commerce in Brazil. And I think Virginia will talk a little bit more about how the Gold Key service is extremely valuable to companies and why this is a great feature of this trade mission. We'll also provide networking opportunities with companies, Brazilian companies, that are selected based on the companies that we're able to confirm for our trade mission. So given the U.S. companies that attend the trade mission, we will go and work with our partners, including CSP and the American Chamber of Commerce, to find companies in their membership that match the profile of our U.S. companies to ensure that we get very high-quality networking opportunities. In addition, we'll have meetings with key industry associations in Sao Paulo and Recife, and these industry associations will not only represent the key leaders in the Brazilian economy, but also specific industry leaders for the energy environment sectors. Next slide, please. So a little bit more information about Sao Paulo. I know Carolina did a good job overviewing what Sao Paulo is, but the population of Sao Paulo is 41.8 million people, so it's quite big. And the GDP of the state of Sao Paulo alone is larger than the economy of most every other country in Latin America. So it's really a good area to focus on. The reason why we'll start our trade mission in Sao Paulo is because the headquarters of many companies are based in Sao Paulo, although much of the work that's done and much of the contracts that will be won will be executed outside of the state of Sao Paulo. Next slide, please. A little bit of information about Pernambuco State. The population is almost 9 million people, and the GDP last year was $40 billion US. There's a number of different investments that will be going into the state of Pernambuco, including a petrochemical plant, a nuclear power plant, and an oil refinery, among many other investments, such as they have one of the largest IT data centers in the country of Brazil, and a number of different IT and healthcare centers that are being invested in at this time. Right now, the service sector is the largest part of the GDP of Pernambuco State. It is very closely followed by the industrial sector, and it is the fastest growing sector of the state. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background on the Energy and Environment Trade Mission. Like we said before, Brazil's energy consumption has been growing by a lot. It's been growing by nearly 8% last year. And looking at the growth rates of the energy sector, it's unlikely that the current energy grid will be able to continue supplying Brazil with the energy they need to secure the growth in the future that we see consistent with their growth patterns. Currently, renewable resources do power over 85% of Brazil's electricity supply. And given this, we have a great motivation within that country to keep with green technologies to improve not only the energy efficiency of their existing grid, but also in ways that they're looking to expand the grid, as Carolina pointed out. And Brazil has invested $204 million of federal stimulus grant money in the smart grid development, which is one area that we see of great potential for U.S. companies. Next slide, please. Looking at just a few facts on this slide about the northeast of Brazil and why it's a good place for U.S. companies to visit. I'm not going to go through all of them because you can read them for yourself. But basically, in Brazil, Brazil's growth rates, as we've said, have been tremendous. But specifically, the state of Pernambuco has been growing at 9%, which is a growth rate rivaled only by China. So there's been a lot of real investment in Pernambuco. And also in their advantage is that they have a number of different federal and state level resources for international companies that are looking to do business in Brazil. So it's a great place to look at expanding your business and kind of entering the market if you're looking at ways that you can actually find a foothold in the Brazilian marketplace. Next slide, please. So who should apply for the trade mission? We're looking at companies, it's very broadly based for energy and the environment. So if you're a company that's in either sector, either energy or the environment, if you consider yourself in falling into those categories and you do have a green technology, then this trade mission is for you. Specifically on energy, the places where we see great interest in Brazil is in renewable energy, energy efficiency, hydroelectricity, smart grid efficiency.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
Okay, energy consumption and distribution. In the environment, we see brownfields, recycling, solid waste management, water and wastewater treatment, and construction. And in others, IT solutions, transportation, and logistics. This is just a slight laundry list of the type of areas that we think will be successful in Brazil, but this is not at all exhaustive. So don't feel if you don't see your section listed on there that this would not be for you. Please do go ahead and contact us. Next slide, please. So how to get involved. To apply for the trade mission, please go to the Brazil Council website and fill out the survey, and then email Luciana Rocha Goldman with your interest in joining the trade mission. And please do sign up for our newsletter and join the mailing list to get event invitations so that you will continue to get information about webinars such as this and other events that we may have in your area. And finally, we hope that we can profile all of you as faces of trade success stories as we help you all find success in the Brazilian marketplace. Next slide. Here's just some links. As Cora said, all of these presentations will be available on our website, so you can access all of these through the Export Green Initiative website, which is the second link on the screen. And next slide, please. Finally, thank you all very much for your time. Please don't hesitate to contact us with any questions.
Thank you, Kathleen. And I see that we are joined by Dorival. So why don't we go to his presentation next, if that's okay, Dorival? I'm going to put your presentation up. Can you see the webinar?
Yes, I can, Cora. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we've been sort of bouncing around. We started out with Carolina in Sao Paulo, and then we went back to Washington, D.C. to see Kathleen, and now we have Dorival da Silva Almeida Filho. I'm sorry, I don't speak Portuguese, but he's
okay. That's pretty close.
He's calling from Recife. I'm trying the best I can to talk to us specifically because the trade mission has an option to go to Recife. Then we would like you to know more about what opportunities are in that area. So at this point, I turn it over to Dorival.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry for the delay that I got into the webinar. Here in Recife, as Kathleen was saying, we have a lot of opportunities. Needless to say that we are here part of the northeast part of the Brazil, and not only we growing really fast, but we have also a good location in terms in the northeast. We are in the middle of the whole northeast. And over here, we have a big opportunity in wind energy. As you can see now on this map, the dark part here represents the best potentials for wind energy. And the northeast, the whole northeast, we have a really concentration of a great potential. This map here, it was made with towers 50 meters high, which is about 50 yards high, and it gave a potential to the Brazilian territory of 140 gigawatts of energy production from wind. And now each state is doing its own map with measurements of 100 meters high, and it's doubling the potential. So we have a 300 gigawatts of potential here in Brazil estimated. Okay, please, next slide. In this last few years, we had a lot of auctions with energy here in Brazil, and as you can see there, we have a lot of parks, a lot of sites registered to participate in those auctions. and it's starting to get out of the paper, let's say like that, and be installed those wind farms, and this is making some manufacturers, some companies of service companies come to Brazil. We know that a few years ago we had a crisis in Europe, and that brings more companies here to Brazil because they see a great opportunity to work here, since this eolic wind farms are starting to be built. And as you can see here, we had 3,000 megawatts installed in 9 months. The next slide, please, will show you the growth of the evolution of the installed capacity here in Brazil. We had a little wind farms, and from 2009 we start to build a lot of wind farms here, and the percentage of the energy generated by the wind farms are starting to grow in comparison to hydroelectrical plants, and those were the plants that dominated Brazil, still dominates the Brazilian energy generation here. But we don't see many more places, many more conditions for hydroelectrical generation. So the wind generation will get just stronger and stronger, and the potentials will be will be seen as good opportunities to the Brazilian companies to generate energy, because the consumption is getting higher and higher. The next slide, please. So as you can see, what I was talking about, we had a little percentage up above with blue. We have the wind generation on those here at the graphic, and each year the percentage of wind grows in relation to the whole generation energy in Brazil, which maintains the generation of renewable energy, but the wind energy will grow a lot. Solar, it's a bit expensive yet. We have great potential for solar energy. There are a lot of players here talking about solar, but the time now is for wind generation, really. Next slide, please. So here, some of the projects that are being installed here in Brazil. We have the potentials in terms of megawatts, and in the states, the only state here that it's not here in the northeast part of Brazil, it's the fifth one, Rio Grande do Sul. This is in the real south of Brazil. All of the others are in the northeast part of Brazil. So here we have this great potential, and that's why all of the industries that works with wind energy, all of the wind companies are coming here to the northeast. And Recife, it's a great place for you to be, because it's close to everywhere here in the northeast, and has all of the capacity to receive companies here. So that, I was really short in my presentation, but I hope that I did show you that we have a lot of opportunities here for wind generation. I work in a company that we are consultants in this kind of services, and not only to prospect sites, areas, do all of the electrical studies and projects, and we work basically with wind farms, and so we are live proof that wind here in the Northeast is really big, and it's growing because we are betting everything on it. Thank you very much.
Okay, obrigada. And I'm going to go back to the title slides. We are running a little bit late, But we have one more speaker, and I would like to make sure that we give her time in the spotlight. She's with the U.S. Commercial Service in Rio de Janeiro, and I understand she has been working on the energy sector for at least 10 years, among other sectors. So she has a lot of experience, and if the trade mission goes to Sao Paulo and Recife, you may not meet her, which will be unfortunate, but she still will participate in this webinar and give you an overview of what services you can expect from the posts in connection with this trade mission. Take it away, Regina.
Thank you so much, Cora, and good afternoon, everybody. First, congratulations to all the other previous presenters. Very good. So I just wanted to, you may pass the slide, Cora, please. I know, everybody already talked a lot about wind, and I don't want to repeat. I just want to go through a few programs that the Brazilian government and some states in Rio have been presenting recently that could boost more renewable energy into Brazil. Because of the wind power declaration, that was like a document that was delivered by some Northeast states some years ago, and you see now the results that both Carolina and Dorival presented about the wind power. So wind has been growing very fast. But now, a lot of institutions and industry contacts have been trying to work on, to try to boost solar and photovoltaic energy for Brazil as well. As Dorival said, it's still considered costly, but recently there has been a big movement towards fostering solar for the medium to the long term in Brazil. And now the Brazilian Power Regulatory Agency has been issuing lots of documents for public hearings to just receive comments from the industry about how they can shape a regulatory framework for solar energy, including micro and mini distributed generation. And right now, for solar, we only have one grid-tied project that has just been implemented in the northeast of Brazil. It's a 1 megawatt power plant that has some plans to expand. Other than that, what we've been seeing in terms of solar is in connection with the World Cup. Some soccer stadiums will have their rooftop. They will be generating energy out of solar, and there have been some programs by the German development agency GIZ that it has been supporting some Brazilian government agencies. And because of that, one solar stadium, the first solar stadium actually is going to be in the state of Bahia, northeast of Brazil. It's going to generate about 600 megawatts. Other stadiums are also should also have solar energy on their rooftops. So this is all in connection with fostering sustainable construction and more energy efficient buildings. Well, I think you can skip all that. Yeah. Well, the other presentations also covered some best sales prospects, maybe not in details, but I would like just to call the attention for some specific types of equipment. And when we say that they are considered best sales prospects, it's because either they are not found in Brazil in the needed amount because of the market demand, or because sometimes quality here in Brazil is still, there's lack of some advanced technologies. Sometimes the price is not competitive, or delivery time may be a problem. So there are some criteria to say why this can be considered best sales prospects. So for instance, in the case of wind power turbines, we consider best sales prospects the ones above 3.3 megawatts, because below that you have a 14% import duty in addition to other duties. But the market for wind, as our colleagues mentioned, has been growing so fast that even wind power turbines below 3.3 may have, some of them have been imported into Brazil. Next slide, please. Now, for solar energy, again, for the medium to the longer term, this is a result of all the studies that the Power Regulatory Agency is trying to conduct to boost the solar power in Brazil. Then you can have these types of equipment in connection with photovoltaic power generation. Right now, I'm writing like a market research report on solar energy, so you will find very soon that this will be published in our export.gov market research library. So you will have a better understanding what's going on in terms of solar, all the movements. The solar that I forgot to say. There's a solar power declaration that the state of Rio de Janeiro delivered to the Minister of Mines and Energy. And the state of Rio de Janeiro itself has some mechanisms, what they call like compensation mechanisms for power plants that are like fossil fuel based. If they want to be installed in Rio de Janeiro, they need to present compensation measures in the way of generating renewable energy sources, or presenting compensatory energy efficiency projects. So the state of Rio is also doing its part to try to foster solar development into Brazil, into the state. And they also have some decrees that they passed here in Rio, exempting the whole wind power and solar equipment chain from VAT taxes here. So some other states also provide this the VAT exemption tax. Okay, and then for solar, these are the best sales prospects that we consider. Then for power distribution subsector, we have some others, including smart grid technologies that Kathleen mentioned. Next slide, please. And how we can help you, I saw in the list of participants in the webinar that many U.S. companies have signed up for this webinar. Some of them are known to us, others maybe not, so I can just say quickly what we can do to help you. Go, please, next slide. Yeah, so we provide trade counseling, so that's a very useful tool when you're considering coming to Brazil. So what should you do? How can you plan? What's the best strategy? What are the regulatory issues here that you will face? So we can guide you through all these steps. Next, please. Market intelligence. So we provide, in our case, for instance, in the case of energy, we have a specific energy web page that you can find all our reports. You can find information on trade events and useful PowerPoint presentations. So whenever I organize, or our team of specialists organize events in Brazil or even in the U.S., we ask the speakers permission to post their PowerPoint presentations in our energy webpage. So you will find lots of useful information in the oil and gas, electrical power, renewable energy, and so on. Next step, please. Next slide. And now business matchmaking. This is where we play perhaps the most important role for U.S. companies. And as Kathleen mentioned, for the upcoming trade mission next year, if you apply for Gold Key service, we can help you schedule meetings with potential partners or with clients or trade associations. So the way it goes is you fill out a questionnaire explaining the goal, your objectives for the visit, the types of companies that you would like to be meeting with, and several other types of useful information that will guide us and will help us pinpoint which companies would be the good matches for you. So we have extensive data banks of contacts that we've been building throughout the years, because we attend seminars, we talk to the industry. So we will do all the market intelligence of recommending which types of companies you should meet with. Then we prepare the entire agenda. We put some comments. We reconfirm everything, and then in some cases we accompany you to the meetings. In other cases, you just go by yourself or with an interpreter that we also help you contract. We also do partner search, which is when you don't want to travel to Brazil, but you want this partner search being conducted, so we can do that on your behalf. And we provide a final report with the companies that have expressed an interest in partnering with you. So this is called the International Partner Search. All the services that we provide can be available, they can be seen on our website. Yes. And trade missions and trade shows, this is also, a part of our core program. We promote Brazilian attendance to shows in the U.S., like Power Gen that Kathleen mentioned, and we organize U.S. pavilions at shows in Brazil as well. The next show that we will be organizing, a major show, is the Rio Oil and Gas Show next year in September, in case there are some companies that, are interested in that. Next, please. We also do commercial diplomacy in case like a U.S. company is participating in a tender here issued by a government agency or a government-owned company, for instance, like Petrobras. If you're facing some lack of transparency or you simply need an endorsement letter from our ambassador, so this is how we can help you with the commercial diplomacy. We have contacts with all the industry here, with the government agencies, and then we try to advocate on your behalf. Next, please. And success stories, Cora asked me to cite a few cases in the renewable energy segment. So one of them was this company, Global Village, with their hydrokinetic renewable electricity generator. So it's something very innovative for Brazil. So they closed a pilot project here in Brazil. Next, please. Capstone, with their microturbines, also made its inroads into Brazil, and they managed to sell $2 million, so maybe more. We haven't been talking to them to get an update, but they were very successful here using some of our services. Next, please. Export challenges. I don't want to be negative, but Brazil has some maybe it's like other countries, we have some non-tariff barriers, depending on some regulatory, some regulations, and we have strong competition from, several countries, especially Chinese, and we have a burdensome tax system here. So you do need an experienced partner here or a law firm that will help you. And just to navigate the Brazilian market. It's not impossible. You just need to secure a good partner. Next, please. And here's my contact information. And I'll be here to answer some questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That was a great overview of just all I think all of the speakers gave a different angle of why renewable energy is booming in Brazil and how U.S. companies can find opportunities as a result of that, and there just doesn't seem to yet be any saturation in the market. So I'd like to open it up for Q&A. We're running a little bit late. It's 2 o'clock, but we did get 3 questions already in the message box. And if you do have, here's how you can actually ask a question by phone: is you press *1, and the operator will put you in a queue for asking a question. And you're also welcome to type your questions now. But we got 3 questions. One is actually for Dorival and Recife. Mm-hmm. And you're still on the line, I hope.
Yes.
And your presentation covered wind, but this participant is interested in solar energy. And it sounds like this participant is following the legislature acts in Brazil about a grid connection law in December, and wanted to know whether that would help prospects for solar energy, and whether there are any laws in particular that tend to make wind energy more prevalent than solar energy, or whether there are other reasons.
No, the reason it's mostly the price of the energy the wind energy today. It has a lower price than solar. We have a great opportunity here in Brazil in a medium time for solar. We speak here that solar will be the next wave. It has started already. A lot of players talk about solar. We have here a department which we are studying and looking for a project and opportunity in solar, but the regulation of this kind of energy generation is being made now by the organization here, the Brazilian organization, power organization. So we are kind of like not waiting, but expecting that soon enough we'll have solar projects. We see that it's going to start with little, let's say, little projects, spread projects, and micro generation, things like that, you know. But the whole Brazil, and especially here in the Northeast, has a great potential for solar generation. It's incredible. If you pick up an example like Germany, that has a lot of projects with solar photovoltaic. The best place in Germany is worse than our worst place here in the Northeast. So we have a great potential here for solar, and I'm sure that it's going to be the next wave.
So just to continue on that vein, would you, if there were a solar company, for example, who said, I'm thinking about joining this Brazil trade mission and I'm interested in Recife, would you say yes, come on out?
Sure.
Okay, just making sure.
You're welcome to visit us here. We'll be glad to meet you.
Okay, we have another question I think actually I'm going to direct towards Regina. Somebody asked how to talk with the energy regulator in Brazil to support their research on the value of solar in Brazil, especially solar and smart grid combined.
So the question is how to talk to the regulator? Because the regulator is already taking public comments for several, solar-related and also smart grid technologies. Right now, for instance, there is like a public hearing for net metering systems through which the power consumers of microgeneration could receive credits back to their electricity bills proportionally to the photovoltaic microgeneration that they have. So this is one of the public hearings that I briefly mentioned. Again, I'm releasing a report on solar that will be more comprehensive, and you can read that very soon. But this is one of the regulations that, the power regulator in Brazil is working on.
So if they were interested in contributing to the public comments or learning more about it, they can contact you?
No, I think this has to be done through the ANEL website directly. I don't know how it works for foreign companies to contribute. Maybe it's the same way. You would have to go through the website and take a look. There are deadlines to submit comments, so the company would have to check if they have not closed that already. So there are there are 2 or 3 public hearings going on, or some may have already finished, but there is a working group within the National Regulatory Agency that, other government agencies in Brazil participate as well. So they are studying possibilities of reducing tariffs, power transmission tariffs, distribution tariffs for future grid-type solar projects. So there's a lot going on in terms of studies.
Okay.
And some industry specialists even risk saying that the future power auctions will include photovoltaic energy, maybe separate ones.
Okay, well, we could follow up if he don't be surprised to hear from him if he may still need the website links for some of these public hearings and that sort of thing. But it sounds great. It sounds like you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening.
As I wrote in the PowerPoint presentation, .org.br. So I can send that later if you need.
Okay, great. And another quick question for you. Your research report, it sounds like we have some people who are interested in it. When do you think it might be available? Later this month or next month?
This month, yes.
This month?
We are working on clearing that. We are facing some system problems here, but should be ready this month.
Okay.
I can send a draft if you want, so.
That's okay. We'll wait for the final version. It's just, you'll have adoring fans waiting. The cost of kilowatt of electric power for consumers in Brazil, is it generally very high or very low?
It's high because the tariffs here in Brazil, they have like almost 40% of tax included in that. So it's really high.
It's high.
And if I could comment on this as well, because Fiesp started this year a campaign, a really important one, regarding energy at a fair price. So right now, the average megawatt hour in Brazil is 341, one of the most expensive in the world, and it should be one of the cheapest ones because of our hydropower matrix. And the major reason for that is that more than 28% of our generation is from like old hydropowers that should be on the bid again after 30 years of concessions. And now they are trying to put the same bid, not doing a bid, and put the same companies in the hands of the same people that have been with these hydros for more than 30 years. So what we are trying to avoid and we are trying to do is that Brazil should stick with our constitution and with our laws and do these concessions again. And this would be an amazing opportunity for U.S. companies as well.
Okay. Thank you. And we have a few more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. And we may not be able to get to every question, but I have the questions, and if we do not answer your question today, we will get back to you. I'm assuming that you're registered and have given us your email address. Here's one, sort of a technical question. Is any form of energy in Brazil transported underground? And if so, is the cable buried or is it in a conduit?
There are underground systems and also what we call air systems, like when you see the wires, also on the streets, but there's a lot of underground, yes. That's why we've been having, I don't know if you've heard on the news, but here in Rio, we've had a series of explosions from the underground chambers because the systems need to be updated. So right now we have some officials from the Rio Power Utility traveling and visiting New York Con Edison Power Utility just to learn more about that. So they are investing a lot in Rio here to upgrade their underground chambers and to avoid further explosions.
Okay. And there are also some people who are interested in hydro. There is one question about small-scale hydro, just generally speaking, and, what are the prospects? And the other question is about upgrading the existing hydropower stations. And one, I think that Carolina was talking about somebody wanted her to go into more detail.
Carolina, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to answer?
No, you can go ahead.
Prospects for small hydro, and small hydro are those up to 30 megawatts. It's a good prospect because small hydros, they enjoy tariff reduction, like the transmission tariff and the distribution tariff are like half the price. But because of scale, we should note that, the large hydropower plants, they win because of scale, because of their size. But yes, small hydropower is included in the renewable energy incentives program of the Brazilian government.
And when it comes to upgrading the existing hydropower stations, what sort of equipment are they looking for?
I wouldn't know by heart, but they may be included in that list of best sales prospects that I put under power generation. But it's also important to note that most multinationals in the power sector are based, they have large plants in Brazil, so like Siemens, ABB, Schneider, Alstom, all of them are here. They've been here for many years, so they seem to be very competitive. But depending on the market demand, and if the import duty is not so high, if we consider an average 14%, which is more or less the average, that can be like a factor against for companies from outside not to be so competitive. But it's a case by case. We have to check.
Okay, here's the last question as we're approaching 2:15. This is regarding energy efficiency. The question is, does electrical metering service in the commercial, retail, and residential sector for monitoring various HVAC and lighting to reduce consumption and demand, is that a need in Brazil or a viable service, or is it saturated?
I think we already have lots of electrical metering companies, like suppliers here, but if we are talking about smart, like new technologies, because Brazil has been investigating smart grid technologies very much recently, so if it's something evolved, I mean, there are some standards being worked out within the Power Regulatory Agency towards smart metering. So we have to see what's going to happen. But anything that is innovative and that helps improve the quality of electrical distribution, yes, it should have like a good market here, especially because the power utilities they have their performance measured by the Power Regulatory Agency, and they are fined if they don't meet certain quality standards.
Okay, well, with that, I would like to wrap up the webinar and thank our 4 speakers who have provided an enormous amount of information that I hope will be useful for our participants as they decide whether they want to apply for the Export Green Trade Mission, which will be in April. And there'll be more information coming on about that trade mission, so please do sign up for Export Green newsletters and keep an eye out for more information. And I thank you once again for your participation, and this is the end of the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cara.
Thank you for participating in today's conference call. Have a great day, and you may disconnect at this time.